welcome to another Partners in Crime tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll be learning how to use Video Copilot Shockwaves in Blender. So, we're going to be using a lot of the compositor and the video sequence editor, and not so much of the 3D viewport here. So, without further ado, let's jump into the compositor. So, I'm going to go to the top of the screen here, click this here, and left click compositing. Now we're in the compositor. We're going to check Use Nodes and check Backdrop. Left click on this render layers node here, hold that and drag it over here. Left click on the composite node, hold that, drag it over here. Alright, and we're going to load in our shockwave now. So I'm going to click Add Input Image. And we're just going to have to show Blender where the shockwave is on our computer. So click Open. Now we have it saved in our shockwaves folder here. So you want to go to wherever you have your shockwave saved on your computer. And for this tutorial, I'm just going to use Shockwave 17 as an example. So double click on that, open it in Blender. Alright, and Blender needs to know the number of frames that your shockwave is, and so we're going to have to figure that out. So we're going to go into the left here, bottom left. We're going to jump into the video sequence editor. Now we're going to load our video here, our shockwave video, into the video sequence editor to see how many frames it has. So click Add, click Movie, and we're going to just go to our shockwave 17, and I'm going to press N on my keyboard, and now you can see length 109. So that's 109 frames. So up here, I'm going to type 109. Alright, we're going to uncheck cyclic, because I'm pretty sure that means it's going to play the shockwave over and over again, and we just want the shockwave played once. So uncheck cyclic, and delete our shockwave from the video sequence editor, since we'll be using the compositor for this tutorial. Alright, so press X on your keyboard and click Erase Strips. Alright, I'm going to scroll down to pan out here, and I'm going to add a viewer output here. So add output viewer. Click to confirm that movement, and hook the output of our image node to the input of the viewer node. And now you can see our shockwave, but we have to scale it down to our render size. So click Add, Distort, Scale, hook it up after our image node here, and change the scaling type from relative to render size. Now we've scaled our shockwave down. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to jump to a later frame so that we can see how our shockwave looks in a later frame, and we're going to edit the color of our shockwave. Alright, so we're going to add a color balance node to edit the color of the shockwave. Now normally we use RGB curves nodes to edit colors, but for the shockwave, color balance seems to be the best option. So click Add, Color, click Color Balance. We're just going to hook it up after our scaling node here. Alright, so now we got that done. We're going to start adjusting the color. So in the lift section here, I'm going to put it up to blue, a nice deep blue, because I'm a bit biased towards blue. Alright, and I'm going to put it light blue for the gain. And I'm just not going to mess with the gamma, because I find that doesn't give me aesthetic results. Alright, so now that we've got that done, we've got a nice blue shockwave. So let's say we want to add a glow to our shockwave. Well, I click Add, Color Mix, hook it up after the color balance node, change it from Mix to Add, and I'd hook this color balance up to this Add node. And then you want to add a glare node. So click Add, Filter, Glare, hook it up after our color balance here. I'm going to change the glare type from streaks to fog glow. I'm going to change the quality to high and lower the threshold all the way to 0 so that we can see our glow. Alright? Okay, so let's say we want to make our glow more pronounced. Well, I add in a blur node before the glare node so that we've got a nice blurry shockwave behind our unblurred shockwave there. So I'm going to use my middle mouse button to pan, scroll down to zoom out. And I'm going to add in a blur node now. Left click Add, Filter, Blur. Go up here, after our color balance node, change the blur type from Gaussian to fast Gaussian. and I'll make it blur by 5 on the X and Y values. Alright. It's a pretty good look. Alright, so now we've got a nice glowing shockwave. Alright, so now I'm going to show you guys how more advanced ways to customize the shockwaves in Blender. So, I'm going to make our shockwave here have a kind of a blast effect by adding in a new node called sunbeams. Alright, so click Add, Filter, Sunbeams. Look it up after our glare node here. Use my middle mouse button to pan. I'm going to scroll up to zoom in here, and you can see there's a setting for the sunbeams. They have ray length here. Now this is going to be the length of the rays sunbeams are. So I'm going to put that to 0.07. Scroll down to zoom out here. Now you can see we have a sort of blast effect on our shockwave. Right? So it's looking pretty cool now. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to customize this more. So if you want to edit the colors, you can, but like I said, I'm biased towards blue, so I'm going to keep it blue. I'm just going to left click to drag these around and show you guys some more advanced customization features for the shockwave. Now, I'm going to add in another add node. So with this add node here selected, press Shift D, duplicate it, go up after the add node here, and now what we're going to do is we've got this hooked up here. I'm going to add in a hue saturation value node. Alright, and what this is going to do is just going to use this to change the color of the shockwave a bit. Color hue saturation value node. Right, I'm just going to pull the color balance output to the input of the hue saturation value node here. Put the hue saturation value node to the add node here. Right, and I'm going to put the hue of this up. Right. Alright, so now we got a purple shockwave, flew out, blast here. Now I'm going to scale this down so that we have a purple shockwave inside of our blue shockwave. So to do that, I'm going to Add, Distort, Scale. Go up after the hue saturation value node here. I'm going to keep the scaling up relative. I'm going to put it at 0.5 on the X and Y so that our purple shockwave is half the size of our blue shockwave. Alright, so now we've got a purple shockwave inside of blue shockwave there. So I'm just going to add a few more cool effects to our shockwave. Alright, the first effect we'll be adding is a directional blur. So click Add, Filter, Directional Blur. Hook it up after our hue saturation value node here. And we're going to put this at spin. We're going to put the spin value up. Let's put it up to 29. See how that looks. Alright, so now we've got a pretty cool looking inner purple shockwave there. Alright, so I'm going to scroll down to zoom out here. Left click and drag our viewer node out to organize this a bit more. I'm just going to keep customizing this shockwave with some glares and, well, glares. Maybe add some more sunbeams so that our inner shockwave gets a blast effect. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to press Shift D to duplicate this add node. Hook it up after our scaling node here. I'll hook it up before our scaling node. So hook that add node up before our scaling node. Now click and drag that out. Click and drag this. Alright, and now I'm going to left click on this blur node here. Press B to box select and left click and drag over all these nodes here so that they're all selected. And press Shift D to do. Alright, so now I'm going to left click to move them down here. And I'll put the output of this color balance node to the input of this blue node. I'll use the output of this hue saturation value node so that we get our purple shockwave in here. Alright, and hook the output of this to the input of the add node. Alright, and now we've got a pretty cool looking purple shockwave in our blue shockwave. Alright, so now that's looking pretty nice. I'm going to jump to a different frame here, see how the shockwaves look on different frames. Alright, so now that we've got our shockwave here, we're going to pay attention to our original shockwaves node. Now you see the start frame here says 1, but if you had an animation in the 3D viewport here, let's say you had a text object slamming into the center of the screen at say frame 50, you want to make the start frame of this frame 50. Alright, so that our shock start at frame 50. Since our text would slam at frame 50, maybe if the shockwave is a little slow, you could put it about 3 frames before frame 50, so we'll put it at frame 47. And so that the shockwave doesn't show anytime before frame 47, we'll add a hue saturation value node, hook it up after our image node here, and we put the value to be 1 on frame 47, so hover your cursor over that and press I, and we jump to, oh, we're not on frame 47, so delete that keyframe, hover your cursor over the value and press Alt I, that keyframe is deleted, and you want to jump to frame 47, make sure you're on frame 47, and hover your cursor over the value and press I to insert the keyframe for that. So our shockwave will show at frame 47, and go to frame 46, and put the value at 0, alright? So press I to insert a keyframe for that value. So now we'll jump to a later frame, and we'll see how this composites. So we got a cool shockwave here. It's not going to show before frame 47. So I'm going to scroll down to zoom out here. And let's say we wanted to add in a background for our shockwave. Well, we'd add an image from our computer for that. And to do that, we're going to just left click on the shockwaves node here, because it's an image node. And for Shift D up here, I'm going to left click on the scale node and press Shift D to duplicate that, since our background is going to need to be scaled down to our render size. Okay, and we'd put this up here. We left click on this add node now, press Shift D to duplicate it, and we're going to put it over here. Alright, and we're going to make sure have that at the bottom there, the output of the scaling node to the input of the add node, and we're going to have to load in our background image now. So go to where the background image is on your computer, so click that to open that up, and we're just going to use GText Green, and we're going to include the download link for that in the description. Okay, so I'm looking for GText Green now. GText Green. There we go. Double click on that. Alright. And we're pretty sure that the color of this isn't going to match Shockwave's really good, so I'm going to click Add Color Hue Saturation Value. Look it up after our image node. I'm going to change the hue on this to something a bit more bluish. Scroll down to zoom out. Alright. I'm going to change this add node from add to screen. Alright. See how this looks. And now our shockwave is looking pretty nice. Alright. So now let's work on making that animation where the text slams into the center of the screen. So I'm just going to go back into the default view. And I'm going to delete the default cube. Press X on your keyboard, left click to delete. And I'm going to press numpad 1 on my keyboard, and then press Control Alt numpad 0 to bring the camera to front view. I'm just going to create some generic text real quick. So click Create up here. Scroll down and click Text. Rotate the text 90 degrees on the X axis by typing R and then X and then 90. And press Enter. And we're going to go into the right of the screen here in the Text Object Data tab. We'll have click on that, scroll down, And under paragraph and align, click center so that we have our text centered on the origin. Then you want to left click on this blue arrow here, drag our text down a bit so that it's more in the center of the screen. I'm just going to press tab to go into text edit mode, erase this text, and type text in all caps. Now you can type your own custom text, but again I'm just making some generic text for an animation example. So I'm just going to extrude this a bit on the right of the screen here. Make it extrude by 0.1, maybe a bit more. Alright, give it a bit of a bevel, put that resolution up, scroll down and increase the letter spacing so that our letters are a bit more spaced apart, a bit more. Alright, size this text up, S and move your cursor out, left click to confirm the sizing, and I'm going to move this down a bit more. I'm going to adjust the lighting now. Use your middle mouse button to pan around here. Right click on your lamp and change it to a sun lamp in the right of the screen here. Pull it up on the Y axis and rotate it on the Z axis by typing R and then Z, moving that towards your text. Alright, I'm going to press numpad 0 to go back into camera view. I'm going to press F12 to render this. Alright, so we've got some pretty good text here. What we're going to do is we're going to make the background transparent, so go into the render settings here and scroll down and click the shading section here and change the alpha from sky to transparent. Now we're going to go back into the 3D view and we're going to animate our text so that it slams in the center of the screen at frame 50. So right click on your text, go to frame 50 and insert a keyframe for the text. Insert a location keyframe by typing I on your keyboard and clicking location once this menu comes up. And we're going to pull this back. We're going to go to frame 47 and type G and the Y on the keyboard and move the text back behind the camera on frame 47. Press I, insert keyframe for location, and now press Alt A to animate, and the text will slam in the screen at frame 50. Alright, and that's when the shockwave comes out. So we'll render this. And now the last thing we need to do, or the next thing we need to do if you're going to add in some more animations, is you're going to need to jump into the compositor. You're going to have to add our scene to our shockwave. Alright, so left click on this viewer node here, drag it out. Left click on the screen node. And let's see. I might use an alpha over node to add our text to our shockwave here. So click add, color, alpha over. Alright, and you want to click add, input. Wait a second. I'm going to scroll down and zoom out here. And I think I might not have deleted my render layers node. Yep, here it is. And along with the composite node, I'm going to left click on the composite node, hold shift and click the render layers node, scroll down to zoom out. Use your middle mouse button to pan, and press G to move those two nodes over here. Now at this point, you want to hook the output of this alpha over node to the input of the composite node. Alright, now left click on render layers, move it down here. Use your middle mouse button to pan around here. And you want to hook the output of this render layers node to the input of the alpha over node. Alright, scroll down to zoom out here, and now you can see your text over the shockwave. And when the text lands to the center of the screen at frame 50, that shockwave is going to come out nice and, well, shockwavy. Alright, so I'll say we want to make our text look more like it sort of fades into the background here. Well, we want to add an add node. So left click on any one of these add nodes here, press Shift D to duplicate them. Hook it up after our alpha over node here, and hook the output of this add node to the input of the composite node. And we're going to add in our background scene with our shockwave once more to this. I'm going to put the add down to 0.08 because we don't want our shockwave to totally cover our text. We want it to just be, say, added in with our text there. Alright, so now it looks a little bit better. So now we're pretty much done with this tutorial. So thanks for watching. Make sure to check out our Google Plus page for some more updates on our Blender creations, and subscribe for more tutorials from partners in coordinated rendering of ideas, motion, and effects.